Hello there and welcome, and yes, this is going to be the review for Incredibles 2, if you can tell from the video title. Just a few things straight away. Firstly, because I'm doing a load of Robot Wars videos for the Deator channel, it does mean this review, which has been filmed as of Monday, which is 3 days after it was released in the UK, it does mean that it probably won't be released until a few days later, this video, so it's going to be a little bit late, this review, although technically speaking the Americans already had it like a month in advance, whereas we had to wait a month because us Brits had the World Cup. That is literally the only reason, so we had to suffer not watching this fucking movie. Well, you Americans get it in a month in advance. It's annoying because football sucks and only stupid people like it. But nonetheless, what was my thoughts on The Incredibles 2? Is it worth the wait? That is the main question that I'm thinking everyone is probably thinking. And for those that haven't seen it, in particular us Brits, was it worth the wait? Yes and no. And you're going to realise why I said yes and no at the same time when I get talking about it. Because, well, first things first, there's going to be loads of spoilers for this film, and I'm going to say this right now. My overall thoughts is, I loved it, but it could have been a whole lot better. And that's essentially what I'm going to be talking about. So, first things first, I love the updated animation. Straight away when the film begins, you have Tony Reigner, or Gardner, or whatever his name is, who's Violet's boyfriend, being interviewed by Rick Hunter, who you may remember is the guy that relocates superheroes, and immediately you can tell this has been updated because they even redo the scene where Violet meets Tony for the first, well, not necessarily for the first time, but they talk to each other for the first time at the end of the first film. And what I like about it is they redo that, and you can definitely tell there's been a lot of differences. For one thing, his head is slightly smaller. He looks younger. He doesn't look kind of weird looking like he was in the first film. I can't even get through the first few minutes without the phone ringing and annoying me. So, as I was saying about Tony Reigner, whatever his fucking name is, I'm just going to call him Tony. He's not the only one that's been updated. A lot of the other characters, like the main characters, you can definitely tell they're a lot more different than they did look like in the first one, but they still look the same in that aspect. You can tell that they look a little bit more slimmer. They can tell that the hair details in particular is so much more better. And texture-wise, it's not a flat plain colour. It is a bit more textured, a bit more shading, a bit more of that jazz. So the film begins, it has Tony being interviewed by Rick Hunter. He's asking, what did you see? And he says, well, I went to see Violet and I asked her to go to a date on a movie. And then, while I was in the parking lot, strange things were happening. Of course, you see the Underminer, blah-de-blah-de-blah. You see the end of the first film. However, you then see a little bit more, which is where the family, after they've taken off their clothes and put on the super suits, Dash and Violet are told to look after Jack-Jack while the parents go off to fight the Underminer. However, Dash argues with Violet and gives Jack-Jack to Violet while Dash runs off to help his parents. And Violet gets in a frustrated mood, throws a mask onto the ground. Tony realises, holy shit, that's Violet, and that's what he says to Rick. And Rick then says, you're going to forget everything, don't you worry. And he removes his memory. And that does become pivotal, by the way. That is a pivotal point. So then you have the Underminer's attack. And this is something that everyone's been waiting for. And if you haven't played the video game Rise of the Underminer, which I did, which is no longer canon, it's more or less in the Legends category now. That was a great game in my opinion. It wasn't perfect. I mean, for one thing, you didn't play as the family, you just sort of played as Bob and Frozen, and that was it. But hey, that's alright. But you saw all these great Underminer droids. You saw a destroyed city. You saw what the Underminer's society was like. Here, the battle with the Underminer is the first 10 minutes, and that's it. And it's not a bad battle. It's a great battle. You see Frozone come in at one point. You see them trying to deal with the giant drill, which is out of control, heading through all these bridges and buildings. You see buildings being completely demolished. You know, I'm very sure a few thousand people are dead. But yeah, it's a great action scene. It's a great shot. However, the Underminer gets away, and the family manage to stop it, but they've caused so much damage, and they get arrested. Of course, this is in the eyes of Winston, who is this big businessman who wants to bring back supers and make it legal again. And that becomes basically the main storyline. Whereas the first film was reliving the glory days, this is bringing superheroes back and legalizing it. So that's an alright story. I think it's decent enough. So the thing about this film is the first half and the second, well, the first two thirds of the film are brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Incredible, you could say. But the final act is where problems arise. And these problems are sort of big problems. Problems in the sense that it kind of becomes distracting. And I'm going to say this right now. The first Incredibles film is a better film than this one. But it's still a good film. However, this third act is where problems arise. So, after the Underminer battle, Mr. Incredible finds out that Violet's identity has been spotted by Tony. He tells Rick that, hey, you may want to find this Tony kid, I know where he lives. He just erases memory. And that does become pivotal, like I said, because the Incredibles are, you know, living in a motel. They're not living the high life, not living in a good house, essentially. And that's when Winston wants to recruit them. He first meets up with Frozen, who leaves the battle scene against the Underminer at the beginning of the film and hides in an alleyway where he is spotted by Winston. They have the interview. So, cutting ahead a bit, they meet up with Winston. Winston introduces his sister, who is this brainy individual who is good at high-tech stuff, can invent whatever she likes, and is good with cameras, and guess what, she's the villain. If you couldn't guess it straight away, then, without being rude, you kind of need glasses, because she is an obvious villain. And maybe it's just me, because I'm quite good at detecting who's a bad guy and who isn't in films, and in this film, even when you're watching the trailers, you kind of guess it's gonna be this character. Admittedly, when I first watched the trailers, I thought, okay, maybe this Winston guy is gonna be a villain, and he isn't. He's perfectly innocent. But I'm the type of person that was so excited for this film that I ended up watching the clips as well, the official clips released by the official Pixar channel. I'm just checking the camera is still on, by the official Pixar channel, and while watching that channel, I watched a few clips, and one of the clips was obviously his sister being introduced and saying, I made these cameras and all that, and right then and there, I knew she's the villain. Especially considering the fact they revealed the villain was called Screenslaver, who uses screens, and it's, yeah, she's not a well-hidden villain. She's not like, you know. And I understand every film needs to have a villain that's identity is revealed at the end. Or they could just create a villain that is a villain throughout the whole film. Or they could just reveal the villain straight away like they did with Incredibles 1. And I will be talking about this villain in a second, but continuing. So he wants to bring back Super Speed, he wants them to have a good image, and he thinks the best bet is with Elastigirl, because based on statistics, she's done the less damage, she has saved more people than actually accidentally, unintentionally caused the deaths of innocent people. And as a result, she's conflicted with, well, what about the kids? What about staying at home and all that? And so Bob said, oh, I can do it. I'll do a really good job. And so they sort of have this mini competition against each other. She thinks that, okay, I'll do a better job than you at being a superhero, and I'll do a better job of being a stay-at-home parent than you did. And they sort of have that little competition, which I do kind of find amusing. And like I said, the first half, and the first, like, the beginning and the middle, and most of the end, is brilliant. It's literally the final bit which just sucks. That is the best way of putting it. The final bit of this film just sucks, and especially when you compare it to the first film, which is what I kept doing, and I know I shouldn't really compare it to the first film because it's a bit more updated. It's a sequel, but at the same time, the final bit isn't very good. But going back to where I was, so as a result, Winston is this big billionaire tycoon. He's given them one of his houses, and they decide to stay in that house now. Violet gets prepared for her date. Dash has to do his homework, this math homework, which it does bring a lot of funny scenes. And Jack is Jack. However, they've now discovered that Jack has powers, which brings a lot of dilemma. What's worse is Violet's date, Tony, doesn't arrive, and she thinks he's just forgotten about her, and she gets all depressed about it. Dash is struggling in school because he doesn't know how to do his maths, and Bob is struggling with all the kids. Meanwhile, Elastigirl is going out saving the day by stopping a monorail train, stopping a helicopter from crashing into each other with a representative, and it's all this stuff happening at once. And Bob, of course, is excited that Jack's got powers, but you can't really tell Helen that because obviously she'll freak out. Violet then discovers that Tony, while she's at school, she discovers that Tony has no idea who she is and has literally forgotten about her because of what Rick did to him. And Bob unintentionally admits that, oh yeah, I told Rick to do this. Your memories get erased all the time, and of course Violet gets in such a pissed off mood. She tries tearing up her super suit and essentially disowns her father for a bit. And Dash, on the other hand, is struggling to do his homework, and so is Bob, and it's all chaos at the home. Something that I should note is, in comparison to the first one, this one's a bit more, how do I put it, cartoony, a bit more goofier. And I know what you're saying, this is already a cartoon. What I mean by that is, there's sort of these different stages when it comes to animation. There's this sort of realistic animation, which arguably was like the first film. Not necessarily realistic as in it's photogenic realistic, but realistic in the sense that it wasn't, all the animals look like animals. All the people may have had exaggerated features, etc., but they still were people, you know. They got hurt, they'd break a bone and all that. It wouldn't be they'd fall 1 billion miles down and somehow survive, you know. And this film goes a little bit more goofy in the sense that you have a raccoon at one point, and this raccoon is kind of awkward because throughout the previous film and this film, all the animals are normal looking animals, and then you got this raccoon who's got this big bulging cartoony eyes and actually cartoonish, stands on 2 legs and does this, and yeah. This film does a lot more goofy humour. Now, I'm not against goofy humour, but in comparison to the first film, and I know I keep saying in comparison to the first film was a little bit more mature in a way. And I'm not saying that this film should have been mature as well, because the first film also had goofy stuff in it. But the goofy stuff was kept, you know, at a limit. It wasn't like going absurd. Which is what this film does. But then again, it isn't bad. It's still enjoyable. It's just a little bit distracting, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. So as Elastigirl is being successful with her superhero endeavours, Winston and his sister then reveal that, guess what, everyone's going to sign this treaty that brings back superheroes once and for all, and everything's going to be happy and dory. However, the screenslaver is still out there, and of course Elastigirl really wants to catch the screenslaver. So of course Winston's sister then says, oh wow, I got a tracker, and just so happens you can find the screenslaver, which she does. She finds the screenslaver, and he's at his house, and she beats him up. She zaps her with this thing, and everything goes according to plan. You know, the screenslaver is captured, apprehended. It turns out he's just a random pizza guy after all, and just check in. Turns out he's just a random pizza guy after all, and yeah, they've captured him. Happy, you know. However, Elastigirl, being quite intelligent, she thinks it's a little bit too easy, a little bit too fishy. So she investigates on her own. She looks at the camera footage on her suit, and she finds out that, you know, behind the screensaver was a TV which has her footage on it. So how could that be? And of course that's when she gets the goggles put onto her face and she's hypnotized by the real screenslaver, which is Winston's sister. Forgot her name. Good reason why. Winston's sister, who is the real screenslaver, or I should just call her screenslaver, she is a dull character. She isn't a very interesting character. She isn't as charmastic as Syndrome from the first film. Syndrome, you know, when I was talking about goofiness earlier, Syndrome was quite a goofy character because all he was a fanboy who became a supervillain because he did become psychic. It's goofy, but he was still a fun villain. He was still slightly over the top, and he was enjoyable to watch. She isn't. You know, you have all this hype behind the screensaver, and throughout this film, the screensaver is this really hyped up and really sinister villain. It's really cool because you see just this text on the screen saying, "Hello, Elastigirl, welcome back, Screenslaver." And it's this mysterious character. You get seeing this guy with the goggles and the mask and the awesome voice. I love villains that have that muffled voice that sounds like this. Sort of the electronic cue, the hypnotism that he does. It's really cool. And then you find out who the real screenslaver is, and the real screenslaver is just a woman in a business suit. A businesswoman in a suit. That's all it is. And you compare it to Syndrome, who was this goofy looking villain, who was also a businessman if you watch the first film. But he still wore a silly costume, no. And I understand if they want to go with that more realistic route, but then again, you just had a raccoon with big goofy eyes trying to fight a baby. You know, it's... I feel like the tone is a little bit off in this film. And once she reveals herself, she does have a good backstory. I will say that Screensaver's backstory in comparison to Buddy's from the first film is much more sympathetic, much more interesting. You know, essentially the backstory is Winston and his sister's father was obsessed with superheroes and even had the telephones to call up superheroes when they were in trouble. However, superheroes then became illegal, and one day a robber broke into the house, and the mother wanted to go into the safe room where it would be safe, but the father wanted to go off, ring the superheroes so they can save him. However, the superheroes never called back, and as a result, he gets shot and he's killed. His mother, the mother dies, you know, weeks later of a broken heart, and as a result, both billionaire children are quite traumatized by this event. But one has decided, you know, we should bring back superheroes because had the superheroes been around, he would have been alive. And the other one is like, well, you know, this obsession with superheroes led to his death, and that is interesting. I will admit, this is an interesting effect. You know, you've got the good person who's the brother, and you've got the bad one who's the sister, and that's interesting. It's just a shame that character-wise, she isn't a lively character. She's kind of dull. You know, her voice is, you know, this sort of voice like that. She always looks like this, with her eyes half shut, you know, with her mouth gaping like this. She's not really interesting. And her only aspect is she's good with technology, and like I said, if you couldn't catch on that she's the main villain, you need to go to Specsavers, because it's pretty obvious she's the main villain. She outright says, "I'm good with technology. I can create this. I can do whatever I want. My brother is just the salesman. He's just the guy that's out at front. I'm the one doing all the hard work." It's like Scooby-Doo. It's like, if you've ever seen a Scooby-Doo episode, it's like that. Something else that this film does really well, though, before I get to the ending, the film does something brilliantly, which is something that can't be said with the first film. Freaks out, I don't like it. It's always difficult to determine. So as I was saying, with the first film, you only really got to see Bob Parr, and you got that epic sequence with Dash. that was about it. You hardly got the other characters, really. This film, Bob does, obviously, in the trailers and all that, get a, sort of sits down a bit, and all the other characters are given more screen time, which I really like, because Violet, who we pretty much only got like 1 or 2 scenes from, she's given a lot more this time. She can shoot these plasma balls, she can create force fields a lot more, she's more confident, as Tony says right at the beginning of the film. Jack exploits more powers, which is amazing. And there's even an explanation why he has so many powers where the other kids don't. And according to Edna, the reason being is when superheroes are born, they tend to have loads of powers, and then as they grow up, they sort of just mold into one single power. Dash, unfortunately Dash doesn't really get a lot. He's the only one which I feel like didn't get as much as the other ones. Because Elastigirl, obviously, she gets a lot more. But aside from that, I like that you're getting a lot more. And not only that, you get more superheroes. Don't get attached to them because you don't know anything about them, but still you get to see more superheroes. You get Void, who's the only one that I believe is named. Oh, no, there's also Brick, but that's only because I remember Brick. Void is the only one that actually talks or does anything in this film, and she can create these voids. Oh, yeah. It made a sound. I hate it when it makes sounds. I was like, Void is the only one that actually does most of the work in comparison to the other superheroes. She can create these voids, and there's this cool fight scene in Violet. That said, I will get onto that fight scene because there's also a problem with it. And you got Brick, who at first I thought was a man, and I kept thinking it was a man, and then when Brick fights Incredible at one point, because of the goggles, she turns to the side, and you can tell it's a woman. Let's just say you can tell it's a woman. But honestly, I thought that was a man throughout the whole film. Then you have this Crusher guy, that's about it. You don't really see much of him. Oh, there's also the Electric guy, who you don't really get much from. You get the Owl guy, who you don't really get much from. You get the guy that belches lava, who you don't really get much from. You get what I'm trying to say. You don't really get much from any of these characters other than the new superheroes. Look at them, more toys. Yeah, they're not really important, but I guess they're important in the sense that, hey, this is a new world, a new era. This is where superheroes are now legal again. This is a new generation. But they are literally introduced like 3/4 of the way in, and unfortunately only one of them ever really does anything useful, and that is Void. And that's only because she's useful in the final battle sequence. But nonetheless, I do like the idea that we see more superheroes. We see the other family members use a lot more powers, which is brilliant. I love it. But then we get to the final bit, and this is where the film, in my opinion, falls flat. You know, throughout this film, it's just been brilliant. Throughout this whole film, it's been brilliant, and this final bit kind of sucks. So we've already been revealed who the screensaver is, and the kids are then attacked at their home by the superheroes who have all been forced to wear the goggles, and as a result, you know, they're all going in for the attack, and they're going to try and convert the kids to wear the goggles, because Screensaver's whole plan is to get superheroes to basically create a large amount of fear and a large amount of hatred to the point that superheroes will then become illegal again, despite the fact they're already illegal. The legalization hasn't actually happened at this point, but hey, Screensaver's plan is confusing. Something that should be noted actually is something that is quite interesting actually from the reviews that I was watching is a lot of people seem to share the same opinion that I have. That is, the film is great, but the ending and the villain is weak, and you're gonna find out why. Just gonna see if that's still recording. Yes, it is. So they're on this boat, and this super fast, high-tech, massive boat is flying at the speed of light, going, you know, just going across from one place to another, and they're going to be signing this treaty. It's going to be on live news all over the world, where superheroes can now be legal again. and they sign the tree, but obviously Elastigirl, Bob, and Frozone and all the other superheroes have now got the goggles, so the kids are sent out to rescue them. And they're using a credit car. However, most of the sequence can be summarised as the kids just dawdle about. They don't actually do much, they just dawdle about, and then you might get a little bit here, but then it just brushes past. Like I said, Violet and... I forgot her name again. Violet and Void, they have a fight, and I thought, okay, this might be a cool fight, because she's got the force field, but the other one can teleport wherever the hell she wants, can teleport what's-his-face, and it's really cool looking, and it ends like just like that. It's like one punch, ends like that. So then they run off again. Oh, the villains are now caught up with them. They get away. Jack goes missing again, because Jack keeps teleporting and growing into giants or whatnot. That happens very quickly. And then they meet their parents, and you think, okay, this might be kind of cool. This might be a really great fight. You see the kids against the parents, you know. They're not going to be... They don't want to hurt their parents, but of course the parents are going to try and hurt them. And of course they then have to do the necessary thing and fight their parents and knock the goggles off and break the hypnotism. No, Jack just crawls over to Mrs. Incredible and kicks the goggles off. Yeah, and then she takes the goggles off the other ones. Yeah. Not very thrilling. Yeah. Not very thrilling at all. So, after that, you then get the main villain who is now getting nervous because now all the other superheroes are losing their goggles and now they're no longer under her spell. So she decides she's going to fly off in a plane, take her brother with her because technically they're family. Brother doesn't want to, he jumps out the plane and he's rescued, he's safe. So Elastigirl goes after her with the help of Void, who actually does something unlike the other ones and actually uses her voids and does this to keep Elastigirl afloat and keeps her going towards the plane. They eventually get inside the plane and that's where you have the final confrontation, and it is one punch and then Elastigirl becomes all weak because, you know, the oxygen has been deprived and all she does is monologue, and Elastigirl then decides she picks up a flare, shoots the flare into the back of the Screenslaver. Screenslaver goes out the plane, but yeah, doesn't really, not really satisfactory because she survives because Elastigirl saves her, and then the film ends with, hey look, Subaru is illegal again. Yeah. Like I said, it isn't as good as the first film, but overall, it is a good film. The finale isn't satisfactory for me. You know, we don't even know what happened to the Undermine. Like, I thought the Undermine might appear at the end as like a cheap gag, but sure, it would have been fun. No. Instead, it's just a bunch of bank robbers, the Incredibles dump Tony off at the cinema, Violet says, I'm going to be with you in a second, just have to go somewhere. They go off to fight the criminals. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. No matter what, I do like this film. It's just wasn't as satisfactory as I wanted it. Is it good? Yes, it is. It's a good sequel, and it does, you know, develop from the first film. It's just could have been a lot better.